Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fact of the Matter podcast. Today I'm joined with Goose
What's up, guys?
and the return of Toby.
I know you all missed me very much.
Today we are going to be giving our prediction for UFC 296 Covington versus Leon Edwards, and
Mhm.
why don't we start right in? Toby, you want to go first?
Sure thing. Initially, we had the Luke versus Ian Gary fight. Unfortunately, that has been cancelled. But we have another fight, which I think is just as equally good. You've got Emmett versus. Wow, Bryce Mitchell. My head just went a little bit off there. I think this fight. I think it's a great fight. Looking very forward to it. I think when I was trying to predict this fight, I came down to the idea that I was thinking of. Um, do I think either Bryce can pull off another Barboza kind of performance or his ego performance where he's in control and do that to, of all people, Josh Emmett? I kind of don't think so. I very much have trust in Josh Emmett's power, and I really don't think he can count him out. Even in his losses, he did show that he could tag Ilya, and then he also really hurt Yair in his fight, which I found was a very interesting thing. So I think Emmett's power really is just something that you can never count out in any fight, and I think Bryce in his fight against Ilya showed that when he gets absolutely like gets hit and is in danger, that he kind of does appear like a deer in headlights.
Yeah. Another thing is Emmett's actually very good at like getting up from bottom. He's
Mm.
a pretty good wrestler, and you look at it, Taporia struggled to take him down.
Yeah, 100%. No, I had that in my notes here as well. Definitely agree with that. So I think that when I think about what I feel confident in here, I think that even though my prediction, I kind of can see maybe Bryce going for those takedowns, or maybe even like, successfully getting it one or two times, I have faith that Emmett's going to take that hit. And I think once Bryce has got blood on him, like he had in the Ilya fight, he just looked completely out of it at that stage. And I think Emmett will get a KO or a TKO. I think it will return to form here, and I'm seeing it for myself around the second round. I think. What are your guys' thoughts on that fight?
Um, I gotta agree with you. Uh, I think Emmett's gonna return back to form this fight. As you said, when Bryce gets hit, he kind of gets a deer on headlights where he's like, "Oh, that hurt. I don't necessarily like that." And he starts like panicking, like he did versus Deporia. Even in his most recent fight, I forget who it was they fought against, but in the third
Oregon?
round, yeah, I believe so. But you could see it. You could see him like start to panic in the third round when he started getting hit. And I look at um, I look at his fight with I look at his fight with Deporia, Deporia, and he Emmett did, while he lost, he does still have his power, and I think he is a very good fighter. And as I said before, I believe his wrestling will get him up if he is taken down. So I do think Emmett's gonna win by I think second round KO slash TKO.
I got the same round there as well.
Oh yeah, it's a good round.
Interesting, interesting. See, I think this would be a much better fight if Bryce actually had a camp, but I don't know. It's a bit hard to say. I think people right now are thinking too much on well, I guess maybe even you guys are thinking too much on the Bryce versus Topuria fight, where I think Bryce, I don't remember if it was short notice. I don't think so. But he was coming off. I think he had COVID, and his
Mm.
cardio was all kinds of fucked. So I don't know. I don't take too much stock from away from Bryce from that fight personally. But I kind of agree with your general um, breakdown of the fight, where Josh Emmett really is a good well, a decent wrestler at least. He is very hard to take down. He's short and stocky and very strong, right? And
Yeah.
we saw what happened last time Bryce fought a fighter that was difficult to get down and had power in his hands, right, against Topuria. But
Mhm.
his last fight he won against Dan Ige, who's also a very difficult guy to take down, and Bryce still managed to take him down, and actually he didn't do too bad on the feet, and Dan Ige tagged him a couple times, Bryce, and Bryce took the shots well. So I think his chin is underrated, and I mean his boxing is improving every time he comes into the cage. So I'd be a lot more confident on picking Bryce if he had a like proper camp to prepare for Josh Emmett. What I worry here, like I would even pick him by submission, considering Yair of all people submitted Josh Emmett. So
True.
if Bryce gets a takedown early in any round, I don't think it'll be the first round. I think he could submit Josh Emmett, but I worry that this time, no preparation. His game plan is just gonna be just go and wrestle basically, and Josh Emmett will be able to time a counter because he's so explosive. So I think
Mm.
I'm leaning into a first round knockout for Josh Emmett if Bryce is not careful, but
Cool.
I could totally see a submission from Bryce.
Mm. Interesting. No, I agree. Good point about the about with the short notice um for Bryce Mitchell there.
Yeah. Going into our next fight, let's talk about Tony versus Patty. First, that's a great fight. I love Tony versus Patty.
Oh,
Um,
man.
I love it. The reason I love it is because we all know who's gonna win. Tony Ferguson is gonna come back, and he's gonna beat
Oh, no.
Patty Pimblett, and he's gonna make it look easy. Damn it!
Don't do that to me, man.
No, I
Don't
no
get
this
me
fight.
hooked.
Let's be honest. This fight, I hate it. I hate that Tony's having is fighting. I love Tony so much. He's one of, if not my favorite fighter of all time. It's this losing streak is on every single time I see him fight. I I get sad, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm going
Yeah,
to
no,
pick.
same.
Yeah.
I have a rule with me that I can never pick against Tony, and
Mm-hmm.
as much as I want to, I'm not going to. I'm gonna pick Tony by I'm gonna pick Tony by I'm gonna pick him by decision, and that's just a hard
Find out.
By
decision.
decision.
I'm gonna say it's a hard
Mm.
thing. I think the Goggins trading has got to him. He's gotten back.
Mm-hmm. Goose, what are your thoughts?
So, Um, I mean, it's just pain, to be honest. Just thinking about this fight. Listen, Prime Tony would absolutely murder Patty with ease, I think. I think he beat this guy, this type of fighters, like pretty early on in his career. Patty really isn't that great. But that being said, I think a lot of people online, like the discourse generally, at least from those backing Tony in this fight, are only looking at the Jared Gordon fight. And you gotta keep in mind, Patty did injure his leg in the first round, and that changes
Mm.
things, right? He's not gonna try to grapple too much to begin with. And obviously his striking is gonna look a bit different. Now, his striking is still ass. It's still shit, and it always has been, right? And I don't expect it to improve significantly in this fight against Tony, but he has an okay chin, and he has okay power. And something a lot of people are overlooking is that he still has a very capable ground game. His thing is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Tony hasn't looked great in his last few fights. Like historically, he's had great grappling, but man, it pains me because it's
Yeah.
one my favorite fighter of all time as well. But he has been degrading for quite a little bit now. So as for my prediction, you know, I think Tony can do it. I think Tony can hurt him. He can hurt him early. Yeah, if he can keep it standing, I think he wins a decision, but I don't think he will. I think Patty will. How you see it going is that in somewhere around maybe the second round, Patty will be able to just, swing wildly, like pressuring Tony backwards. He'll get tagged here and there. He'll take the shots. He'll tag Tony a little bit. He'll crash into Tony, and from there he'll get some sort of takedown and armbar. I'll say in the third round. I think he's gonna get an armbar, and fuck. I hope if that happens, I hope Tony taps. I don't wanna see anything else. To be honest,
I
But
don't think he will, but
I know I'm ready to not watch that fight.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a bit sad. I think I agree. I don't think Tony's winning this at this stage. He's 39. Um, After that Diaz fight, I'm never picking him again. He looks like geriatric in that fight, and ever since that, I don't even know if he belongs to be in a cage, to be honest. He in that fight as well. He showed really terrible submission defense. He kind of just put himself in that guillotine. And the one thing I would say about Paddy is his striking may not be the best, which I do agree. Like the Gordon fight definitely showed that, especially from defensive side. But I think Paddy's still got good kicks. Paddy's grappling is still above average. He has quite a lot of subs on his resume, and I just think if there's something that you can be very confident going into this fight is that Paddy's grappling is just going to get Tony. And I just think Tony is at that stage where 39 years old, he's on such a losing streak. I think Paddy's going to be the one to make him tap. I'm thinking an RNC here. I think it's going to be the first round. Yeah, I think he taps.
You think he taps? Interesting. I think, especially after him going through this hell week, I don't think he will. I'm worried because, especially with how Tony has fought or has trained this camp, he hasn't done any MMA training and has only been doing training with David Goggins, which is pure cardio, which we all know isn't Tony's issue. Like, Tony's got probably the best cardio in UFC history. Suck it, Colby. But but yeah,
I don't think he has only done cardio though. I think that's at least Goggins and Tony have said that that's only what they showed.
Interesting.
They did
All right.
training. Again, it's not exactly what Tony needs at this point.
Yeah, interesting. I hope Tony's confidence is back, and I think that's his biggest issue is his confidence. It's obviously age is also there, but I think like after he lost to Gaethje, that confidence was kind of taken. You saw it kind of come back versus Chandler in that first round, and then it was stripped away. Screw you, Chandler.
Yeah,
but I think he really needs that confidence, and I think if he stops Paddy's takedowns and actually starts beating him on the feet, which there is a good chance he chins Paddy. I mean, he chinned Bobby Green. There's a good chance he'll chin Paddy, and Paddy doesn't.
And Chandler.
Yeah, and Paddy sees this fight as an easy win. He said it at the press conference. He thinks it's going to be an easy win. So I would love to see what happens. Let's go, Tony.
Yeah,
Tony will definitely.
In the UFC embedded. See, that's the thing. I saw the UFC embedded as well, and Tony has like a little clip in there, and he's got his striking coach saying, "Oh, he's looking better than ever," and he's just like, I don't know what the thing's called. He's just hitting some pads or something like that, and he looks unbelievably slow. I'm sorry, but like I couldn't help the contrast of like his striking's looking great, and then he's just looking really slow. I just can't. I don't think there's anyone. I think even Tony fans at the stage have realized that they can't really back him up as much anymore. I think they've kind of realized it's a little bit of a shot in the dark to go for him.
Yeah, he's definitely slow, but I mean, at least in his last few fights, what has gotten him some success is his timing, which is still there. Like, yes, he's slower than he's ever been, but the reason he caught Chandler and Bobby was because he prepared. So I hope that he has like some good preparation for Paddy to be able to time him and hurt him. But I agree, his speed is just not all there. And I don't think he can
Mm.
capitalize if he hurts Patty. So
Mm.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
getting off
in
to
other words, you're right.
going off to
Yes.
our next fight. Let's talk about Shavkat versus
Mm-hmm.
Wonderboy. Now this
Ooh.
fight I originally was I studied the crap out of this fight, and I remember and my pick was going to be Wonderboy by TKO. However, after
Interesting.
that was going to be my original pick. However,
Yeah.
I really thought about that pick, and then I realized I'm overthinking the crap out of this. I originally was thinking,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm overthinking the crap out of this. And I was like,
Yeah, I was like,
I was like, dang, I'm overthinking this. But I was thinking Wonder Boy, he's a very good striker, a much better striker than Shavkat. If Jeff Neal can do what he did to Shavkat, then Wonder Boy can do way better. But Shavkat's wrestling is just way too good. He's a
mhm,
very good wrestler. Wonder Boy has not been known to being the best wrestler or having the best takedown defenses. You know, I
mhm,
I I look at this fight and I think Shavkat's just gonna take him down at some point in the fight, and I do think he will sub him eventually. I think he might struggle. As
mhm.
Shavkat's jujitsu, like when I watch it, it's not as good
Yeah.
as it's hyped to be. I see
Mhm,
he's kind of got that Hamzat hype to him, and I'm sitting there like he's not as good as people think he is. Like people think he's like
mhm,
at this level where he would sub Burns, and if he was on the ground, he would outstrike Wonder Boy. Like stuff people were thinking about Hamzat. But sometimes you just gotta take it back
mhm.
to reality and realize he's not as good as people think he is. But he's definitely very good.
Mhm. Yeah.
He's definitely like a
Mm.
Colby Usman, Burns, uh, Hamzat tier of like fighting. He's his own little. He's above
Mm.
most. But I
Yeah.
do.
Above.
I'm going to pick Shavkat by first round sub. No, I'm going to do
Mhm.
it second round sub. Second round sub. I think he'll
Mhm.
survive. Wonderboy will
Oh.
survive the first round, and then after, I think Shavkat will win.
Mhm. Well, you see, I have the original pick that you had there, the shove card by sub in the first round. And I've written here that I think Wonder Boy, like, this is his weakness personified. I think we had the Bilal fight, we had the Burns fight. They both just kind of utilized the exact same path to victory, it seemed. And I just think you've got a guy that's bigger than both of them, who's taller than Wonder Boy, and he's got, like, an unbelievable drive for finishing people. He's 100% finish rate. I just think he's going to go in there and he's going to try to correct the Neil fight, which made him look very human. Um, I think both of him and Kamzat very much have that very aggressive first round kind of style. They're both very hungry for that kind of finish. Um, I just think like he's going to be able to take down Wonder Boy. That is like what Wonder Boy has struggled with. That is shown in those two fights. And I didn't do too much research to be honest. I just kind of went off those two fights. Especially seeing how Shavkat is on the ground. I think he is a very good wrestler as well, but not so much in the subs um, aspects, which I would agree with you there. But I just think he's going to make it really quick and easy, and I've got the first round.
Mm. Yeah, so for my pick, I was actually originally gonna pick Wonder Boy by decision as well, but the more homework I started doing, I started realizing, I'm finding it pretty hard to imagine this fight not going to the ground. Just the fact that Kevin Holland, without really trying, took Wonder Boy down twice in that fight, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kevin Holland. I mean, we're comparing Shafkat and Kevin Holland. I think and Kevin Holland actually let him up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I do think Wonder Boy is a much better striker than both Shafkat and Holland. Shafkat really is a good striker, but I think if it was a pure striking match, Wonder Boy wins it. I mean, I don't know who beats him in striking. That being said, I do think that they'll eventually either crash in together or Shafkat is gonna pressure him. And Shafkat is good with his pressure, man. He's effective. and eventually I do see him maybe catching a kick, or just pressing against him, Wonderboy against the cage, just like Bilal did, just like Gilbert Burns did. But like you, Toby, I do see like the difference there would be that Shadcat would actually look for a finish, and Wonderboy once upon a time used to be a guy with very good takedown defense, but where that has changed, I think, is in like the new age of MMA fighters, the new age of grappling. Maybe he had great takedown defense for like the standard American wrestling, or like more old timey wrestling in MMA, right? But now fighters are evolving and they're applying new techniques. They're getting better at wall wrestling, and they're adding stuff to their grappling game that I am not so sure that Wonder Boy is up to date in those aspects. So ultimately, I do pick Shafkat. I'll say submission round three. I think he'll struggle. I think Wonder Boy will look good in some moments, but I do think he gets a late submission.
Mm,
Yeah, interesting.
interesting. We all have different rounds that we've picked for
Yeah.
subs.
Yeah.
He
So
gets it right.
yeah, exactly. So the next fight we have is the co-main event for the flyweight title. Pantoja for his first title defense against Brandon Royval, and this is their second time showing. To be honest, I don't think I've given this fight the due diligence and the research that it deserves. However, going to this, kind of my perception of the flyweight division was that Figgy, Moreno, and Pantoja were kind of what I would consider the elite fighters of that division. And now that Figgy's gone, I just think it's Moreno and Pantoja. And I think that's going to show in this fight. I think their first fight was quite a dominant showing from Pantoja. And I think Pantoja's just got such a slick and quick ability to get a body triangle that I'm pretty confident that he's going to be able to do it again. I think that last fight that he was in with Pantoja Moreno was an absolute war. So I do think like maybe you could factor in like how does he look after that fight, but I still think that fight shows that they're both like toe to toe at this stage at another level with the flyweights. And Royval is in his last five, he's 2-3, and Pantoja's on like quite a run now at this stage. I think I'm backing up here, Pantoja in this one. And I'm thinking I'm along the lines of the sub here as well. I've got a lot of sub predictions here, but yeah, I've got a sub here in round two is my thing. So, whatever you guys want to continue on from that.
Yeah, no, I have a pretty similar pick actually, and yeah, I was also surprised. Damn, I got quite a few sub predictions here. Um, but yeah, no, I do. I don't know. I think it'll be more competitive than the first fight. I do think, like when I look at Rival's recent fights, I do think he's a bit more composed, and I think he will be more careful in his approach against Pantoja. But I really struggle to see where he best Pantoja. I don't think he's gonna knock him out. Pantoja has a crazy chin, and unless Moreno cracked it real badly, I don't think Royval's gonna crack it himself. Uh, and submission, or like in grappling, I think Pantoja is simply better than Royval. He submitted him in the first fight, and Royval actually did pretty well in the first round of their fight. With defending the grappling. But I think it'll be a similar fight this time around in that he'll look good until he doesn't. I think there'll be two or three very pretty competitive rounds, probably Pantoja winning them for the most part. I think Royval will win most of his striking, but ultimately I think Pantoja will just find his way into finding Royval's back and snatch probably a rear naked choke. Um, I think that's the most likely scenario in that fight. The only way where I think Royval can stop Pantoja, like the most likely path to victory for him, is if he does something crazy, and he's very chaotic, right in his style. he can find. He's very creative. The problem is that against a guy like Pantoja, that can simply get him in trouble because Pantoja has a good chin. He can take those wild shots, most of them at least. And if they get into a clinch position or something, Pantoja is at an advantage. So ultimately, I do pick Pantoja. I want to say around 3 or 4 submission. I think it'll be a bit later this time. But yeah, Pantoja by sub. What about you, Jack?
Uh, Going into this fight, it's a rematch, and though Pantoja did win a robbery against my boy Brandon Moreno, he he's definitely he's definitely one of the best fighters in this division. He's so good at
Mm.
and we've seen this fight before. Roy Val. I haven't rewatched that fight. This is the one match I didn't do too much research on. And looking at that fight, because I haven't rewatched their first one, but from what I remember it being a little back and forth, not too much back and forth in the first one, and then second round Pantoja getting the sub. I think it's gonna be something similar, but I think Pantoja's gonna do a ton better round one, maybe even finishing him by knockout round one, and it
Ooh.
because he's got power in his hands. I mean, look, he dropped
Mm.
Moreno, who has that chin.
Yeah.
Moreno was able to handle Figgy, and he dropped Moreno and had him hurt. It could very well be a KO for Pantoja,
Mhm.
but for my pick will be a round two sub, similar to just like Toby's. I'm picking round two sub, and again, a lot of subs on this.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting that you pick him by knockout because Royval has a great chin
No, by submission. I
himself,
picked
and
him by submission. I just said that he's able to knock
oh,
him out.
yeah, my bad. Sorry. I thought I meant interesting that you see a knockout likely. Um, it's my bad. I had a little brain fart, but I think the last I may be misremembering, but I think the only time Royval has been finished by knockout it was an injury a finish against Moreno. So I think he also has a very good chin, and as a counterpoint to what you mentioned with Moreno handling Figgy's power, maybe that has come to a detriment because he's been already in quite a few wars with Figgy and Kaikar France and Pantoja before the last fight, so maybe his chin is getting a bit weaker. And I don't know. I think Royval will be fresher than Moreno, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I do expect Royval to have better striking this time around.
Mm. I
And
think Moreno's always been like pretty hittable and droppable. I think his durability is the thing that I would say is like it shows off. Like the Mexican roots are there.
yeah.
He's like the dog in him. You got me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he takes a lot of punishment. I mean, his face was pretty beat up after that Kaikara France fight. I
Mm.
mean, obviously
Yeah.
it was beat up after the first Figgy fight, which that was a great fight, and it showed that toughness where he injured his arm and was still using it to throw
Mm.
punches. And you look at his toughness and Pantoja. There's a good. That's a great point. He could have his chin could not be there after all of that. And Pantoja, he's not necessarily known for his power, but yeah, it would be. I do think it's a possibility, but I'm picking. I'm gonna pick by round two sub. You know what? You know what? Actually, nah. I'm gonna stick to nah. I'm gonna stick to round two sub. I was gonna say. I was gonna say
You
nah.
wanted
I'm
to be
going.
different than from me.
Yeah, I was gonna say round two KO slash TKO, and I was like, no.
Ooh.
But no, I'm gonna say round two sub.
Nice,
I'm like,
nice.
I'm not gonna be that wild.
Mhm.
And I guess moving on to the main event of the evening,
The big
Colby
one.
Covington
Ooh.
versus Leon Rocky Edwards, also known as Hands.
Leon Scott.
Man, I think. Leon Scott too. I think this is a great fight, honestly. I really hated that the fight was made in the first place because, I mean, we all know Kobe doesn't deserve this shot. But that being said, man, researching this fight, it was pretty interesting to try to guess how these styles will match up. Seeing how both of these fighters have handled Usman so differently in their fights, because they're very different fighters, obviously. But I have maintained for a while that I am very confident in Leon finishing Colby by submission. Um, but to be honest, my confidence has gone down a bit on that.
Mm.
Um, for starters, I do see the scenario where Colby just grinds out a decision based on his style of grappling and how different it is from Usman. Um, and second, I'm still picking Leon to be clear, but I have a harder time now picking the method. I think it could be a TKO. I think it could be a submission, though maybe less likely. And I think he could win by decision as well. I think people are underestimating Leon's cardio and grappling. Um, as for Colby's grappling style, something I want to mention is that okay, I think something that will be pretty relevant this fight is the stances of both fighters. I've been trying to really uh, get down Colby's logic when grappling, because, for example, when with Masvidal, he was changing
Mm.
stances a lot, But Masvidal is an orthodox fighter,
Mm-hmm.
and or like in a standard stance, and he doesn't move much like Leon does. Leon is a southpaw, and what I noticed, at least in the Masvidal fight, is that Colby likes to switch. So, for example, when they're in the open, um, they are in an open stance, and Colby kind of swings his wild blitzes with like his hands way low, just
Mm.
flinging overhands. And then when he's doing that, he switches stances, he closes the stance, and then he shoots for a takedown. That's something I noticed he did quite a bit on the Masvidal fight, unless Masvidal was closer to the cage. Uh, in that case, I believe he didn't really bother switching stances. Um, I also noticed that he was very happy to strike with Masvidal. He was obviously happy to strike with Usman as well. I don't expect it'll be the same against Leon because Leon is obviously a better striker than all three of them. But that being said, I do think Kobe will have to strike with Leon because, well, first I don't think he'll get naked takedowns, right? Second, he already does a good job at mixing striking and takedowns. And third, I
Mm.
think Leon will be good at defending most takedowns. Leon was good at defending Usman's takedowns for the most part against the cage, although he still makes some mistakes that I just know he knows better, but he's not used to doing better. At least not yet, right? So I think Colby, ultimately, Colby will do his standard game plan of just striking wildly, but he has been dropped in his last, well, quite a few fights now, and I think Leon is the fighter to actually finish him. I think he will be able to intercept him in those entries and exits from grappling, and off that, off dropping him, I think he'll find a submission. So I'm standing by my original pick. I think Leon will submit Colby round 4. That's my final pick.
Round four
Interesting.
sub. Interesting, interesting. Going into this fight, this is the fight I've done the most research on. This is the fight where I'm like, huh, this is gonna be harder to pick. When comparing the grappling of Usman and Colby, Usman is not necessarily better at control than Colby is. You see his fight versus Masvidal. He kind of just pushed him against the fence the entire time. Versus Colby, I mean, the brief time they were on the ground, Usman couldn't really do anything. and then versus Leon, didn't necessarily control him on the ground too much, especially in their third fight. And going into this fight, I watch those fights, and I see I watched the Usman versus Leon 3 fight, and one thing I noticed is he grabs the wrist a lot to defend, and that's very great against the cage. The reason that
Yeah.
is because he gets that underhook and or overhook where he's over the guy's arm and then grabs the wrist. What that does is it kind of makes it so the guy's takedown's basically nullified completely. And what he'll do is he'll scooch out and try and get away. One problem with that is Colby, he does like to push you against the cage and wrestle you down that way, but he is much better at wrestling in the open than Usman is, and it'll be interesting to see how he'll do that. But on the ground, if they are on the fence, I do not think Colby will be able to control him. It will be very interesting to see how Colby does when trying to control. I don't know. I don't necessarily think he's going to succeed very much when he's against the cage. That when you in wrestling specifically, I'm talking about just genuine wrestling. I had tend to struggle with the longer, lankier guys to keep on the ground than the big meatballs. And those lanky guys are very hard to take down and to keep and hold down. And Leon's a very lanky guy, and I think he's going to be able to stand up. Now on the feet, obviously the answer of who's the better striker obviously goes to Leon. But when I watch Leon striking, I was looking at where people had success against him, and I watched the Usman fights and the Nate Diaz fight. I also watched the RDA fight, which got me absolutely nothing. But watching those fights, I saw the most he got. The best he got was the best his opponents got on him was when they blitzed in on him, which I found very interesting. That's Colby's entire style of striking, where he just blitzes in on people and tries to just strike you that way. But the problem is with Colby is Colby's weakness is striking long distance, which is Leon's strength. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes first, the striking and the takedown, or will it be the long distance striking where he attacks from a distance, backs up constantly. I am going to go with a Colby Covington unanimous decision. And I'll save my rest for the rest of what I want to talk about for the discussion.
For sure. No, interesting points I think both of you have made. I think I stood back here and I kind of wanted to get a little bit of context in this one. And to me, I think there is some glaring context here that I think is standing out straight away is Colby has not fought since March 2022. That is a long time. He has dealt with legal issues. He's dealt with getting hit, like a sucker punch, really, from Jorge. And then even on top of that, he made a claim that he got a supposed brain injury from that. That is a massive thing to say in the new amount of time he has not fought. I also get a little bit worried about, the last 2 fights he has had has been under the new management at MMA Masters, and that's when we've seen this new sloppy striking that's very reliant on volume, very reliant on blitzing. And you made a very good point about the blitzing. Does catch Leon. However, I'd say the opponents he faced there weren't reliant on blitzing. Colby's striking style now is very reliant on blitzing, it seems. It's just like, you go into this fight now and you can just assume Colby's going to do that now at this stage. It's just a given. And Goose made a point about him being dropped. I think I got the numbers on this one. He's been knocked down 5 times in his last 4 fights. And apparently the Jorge one wasn't really counted as a knockdown, but that's a knockdown in everyone's eye.
Yeah,
everyone saw that.
He took a knee for the first responders.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
it's amazing. I love that. But yeah, so I think there is so much in terms of that I get already worried about Colby. And then on top of that, you got Leon. He's a very good counter striker. I think he's going to be ready for it. And I have 65% confidence that Leon's going to get it done by TKO. However,
Mm.
I think that 35% is still worrying to me. I think Colby can win through open mat grappling. I think that was a good point that Jackson made, is that, yeah, Colby, that is his bread and butter, him being in the open mat scenarios and off the cage, because Leon will be able to work well on the cage. It's like kind of his bread and butter as well. Leon is just also a serial fence grabber. Like, I
Mm.
think that's gonna definitely play a part in this game, in this match for sure.
Good
And
point.
oh
Oh
my
yeah.
god, the nut shots that Leon does on Usman, I can just see one happening to Colby, and he's gonna start crying, like
Oh,
to the
both of
ref.
them.
Like
Colby had
both of
had
them.
3 nut shots versus Masvidal as well.
Yeah, no, I just gonna be an absolute ref is gonna have a nightmare in this match. I can already see. So I do think Leon's got like the edge in that. So it's even from complaining to ref, like the fence stalling, the fence grabbing is a lot more impactful into the fight and the way it goes and the dynamics. A lot more than just like a pause because of a nut shot. Really, I think
Mm.
that's definitely going to help Leon in this one. So hopefully we see a ref that doesn't allow that to happen. As much as I like Leon, like that really annoys me every time I watch him. He's just
Same.
such an offender of cheating. I mean, both Leon and Usman, there was just like the fence grabbers 101 there. Like honestly, but yeah, I agree that the Colby needs to like stick to the open mat if he wants to get that win. And I think Leon cannot stall on the fence, but he won't be as punished um, as opposed to when he was against Usman, because Usman really, really thrived in that scenarios where Leon would just kind of guard up on the fence and Usman would just start raining in with his
Mm.
with
Yeah.
elbows, and he's a lot more vicious with his striking than everyone can consider Colby is. I don't think Colby is going to present as much problems to Leon in those scenarios than Usman, but I definitely can see if Leon does that kind of stuff, Colby might just go through for the just like takedowns along the fence. But I feel very much more confident in Leon being able to drop a Colby who's already been dropped quite a lot. And as well, if he's blitzing in, I think Leon's going to be ready to throw in some knees. He got a brilliant knee in the
For
last fight
sure.
against Usman. So that's honestly my prediction at this stage is actually I see Leon putting in a knee. He's going to drop Colby. He's going to fall into the ground. I think he's going to get a TKO in the round two, I believe.
Damn.
Interesting.
Early.
Interesting. Early. I could definitely see that
Mm-hmm.
happening. Colby,
Mm-hmm.
while he does have a chin, he does get hit, and being knocked down. I mean, I don't know how, Masvidal wasn't considered a knockdown, but
Yeah, crazy.
it'll be interesting. One thing that I didn't mention was the cardio, and that's always going to play a pace in the Colby fight.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
Leon, while he has pretty good cardio, he was able to go 5 rounds. You started to see him start to slow down in that fourth and fifth round with Usman, even though he did win those rounds against Usman. Covington's gonna put a way faster and more insane pace on him, and I think that could tire him out, and I think it'll be less likely for him to get necessarily a knockout or a finish in the later rounds.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because, I definitely could see that scenario, but part of the reason why I think Usman wasn't able to push the pace was because of the damage that Leon was able to land early on, and I think we might see a similar thing against Colby, where I mean I wouldn't be surprised if Colby is not able to push the pace as much as he's used to, or as he may want to, because I mean if we look at the last Usman fight between Edwards and Usman. The first round, Usman came in as a southpaw. I'm still not sure why, what the plan was, but Leon landed some sick leg kicks.
Mm.
And
Yep.
boy, they clearly hurt because Usman did not return to southpaw the rest of the fight. and
Mm.
so I would fully expect Leon to target the Colby's lead leg pretty often in this fight, and I think that'll affect his volume later on.
Mm. I think
Yeah.
you made a point about the cardio with Leon, and especially with his fifth rounds, and everyone loves to bring up the Diaz fight. I struggle
Mm,
to be able to like predominantly say that it's a cardio issue. I think Leon has shown he gets like into this state where he feels really comfortable with getting like a decision win. Like it's like such
mm,
a common thing. Everyone loves to say
Yeah.
that Leon is such a decision fighter. Still a dangerous fighter, but he is quite a decision fighter. And my hypothesis has always been that I think he just gets really comfortable once he knows and feels that he's got the decision in the bag, that he's just going to kind of cruise it to the win. And you saw with that Diaz
right.
fight, his his corner were calling out, "You're getting bad where you're like you're looking flat-footed here," and that's when he got caught by the 1-2. And I
Mm,
think that's what always like worries me with Leon is that like I think he's got good ability. I think the problem is his like mentality sometimes is like a big player factor here, especially with that Usman fight. Everyone was talking about like, oh, he looks like he's given up and that stuff, but I'm like, no, Leon's very like this. He has his moments where he just becomes reserved and like becomes very flat-footed, and he's very a little bit gun shy. Like this isn't something that necessarily new that we've seen from him. Like he has these moments that make me very worried sometimes with him. Like it's not something we want to see in someone who's like at the title level, like that you're like
Yeah.
kind of gliding off a bit and like kind of zoning out and like becoming a bit flat-footed.
mm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I think Leon's main flaw is that he doesn't go for the finish enough. If
Yeah.
he were a more aggressive striker, I would be a lot more confident on picking Leon.
Yeah. And
Mm.
one thing you mentioned, Goose, that I wanted to talk about was the leg kicks, and it's like, yeah, Colby. When I look at his career, he has struggled with leg kicks, whether that's from Masvidal, whether that's even from way back when against RDA. He struggled a little bit with leg kicks, and going into this fight, Leon's got amazing leg kicks, and that could definitely
Yeah.
lower the pace of Colby Covington. And we saw versus him versus Usman, as you said, like, well, I don't know. I don't know. I think you were talking about the Leon versus Usman, but when Usman or when if we look at Covington versus Usman 2, Colby
Mm.
Covington's pace was a lot slower in that fight, and you know you look at it, and that could definitely be a reason uh for Leon to win. If he can't get that pace going.
Yeah, for sure.
I think also
Yeah,
the
I
thing is
agree.
that like the elbows as well is one thing that Leon also excels at,
Haha.
and that like the blitzing will create a lot of clinch exchanges, like clinch scenarios, and like I wouldn't say I have so much information on Colby and how he does in clinch scenarios,
He
but
does
like we've
pretty
got
well.
Leon's got loves his collar ties. He loves exiting and throwing in
Mm.
the elbows, and again with just how I'm very sus on Colby and like his affinity to get dropped. I feel like even an elbow might drop him at this stage, especially when you look at Leon's elbows. That especially that RDA fight you said you watched, man. That is unbelievable. To like that is a textbook fight to watch if you want to see how good Leon is with clinch exchanges and
Yeah,
especially exiting them with elbows. He went off on that one.
yeah.
That's so funny you mentioned that, Toby, because I was about to mention Leon's elbows as well.
Yeah.
I really think that when he drops Colby, it will be either with a knee or an elbow, and it's
Yeah.
precisely because of the way that Colby sets up his entries into takedowns, right? So when you look at his
Mm,
fights, his recent fights, the way he throws down, right? He's winning this super wide overhands with the other hand super low because he's trying to fake a takedown at the same time as he's throwing, right? And then he
mm,
he goes for the takedown. Now, usually he's good at getting his head off the center line. The problem is that when he does land and when he's happy to keep striking, he just stands there with his like almost straight up. He lifts his chin out
mhm.
there and is just not protected. He only brings his hands up when like the other person is already like striking, you know. Masvidal and Usman didn't have too much success because I think they were kind of waiting and trying to counter, but they were taking too long. And I think Leon will look to intercept him with elbows and knees. And the way Colby goes into these takedowns, I think he will walk right into one of those strikes, and that's why I think he'll get hurt. So.
All right. This concludes our podcast. Just for a quick recap, let's go through our picks. For my first pick, I am picking Josh Emmett by, I believe it was second round TKO. Against Patty, I'm picking against better judgment. I'm picking Tony by unanimous decision. Next fight, I'm picking Shavkat second round sub. Pantoja, I'm picking second round sub, and Colby, I am picking. For the Colby Leon, I'm picking Colby by unanimous decision.
Interesting.
Goose, do you want to go next?
Yeah.
Goose.
Yeah, for Bryce against Emmett, I think I want to say Bryce, but my official pick is Josh Emmett by probably first or second round knockout. Then I think Patty will find an armbar, specifically an armbar, late in the probably third round. Shavkat and Wonderboy also third round submission for Shavkat. Pantoja and Royval, I think Pantoja will get a rear naked choke around the fourth round. I'll say the fourth. I'll say the fourth. And finally, oh my god, too many subs. Leon by round four submission as well. I feel iffy picking so many subs, but we'll see.
We'll see.
And then mine ones, I've got the Flat Earther versus the Middle Earther. I'm going for the Orc. So Emmett by KO in round 2. Kukui versus the Baddie. I've got the Baddie by sub in round 1. I've got Shavkat versus Wonderboy. I'm going Shavkat in sub round 1 as well. Pantoja versus Royval, I've got Pantoja by sub round 2, and Leon Scott versus Colby, I've got Leon by TKO round 2. All three. I'm not very specific on that one, but yeah.
All right, and those are our picks. Thank you everyone for listening to us. See you next week.
Yeah, gamble responsibly.
Gamble responsibly. Bye.